recently, Russia tested its Sarmat Satan II ICBM intercontinental ballistic missile. If such ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads are fired hypothetically at Russia, can the defense systems such as the S-400 or the Patriot intercept them? And if they did such high yield missiles, what would be the impact in air as the warhead would explode? And do you think radiation would spread? Okay, let's first take the second part of the question. Let's say you have a nuclear missile that's incoming and you take it out with an anti-missile missile, let's say with the S-400 system or some other missile defense system. India has its own indigenous anti-missile systems like the Prithvi air defense system and so on. So it's like shooting a bullet with a bullet. That's what it's like. So let's say you have an incoming intercontinental ballistic missile. What an ICBM does, or any ballistic missile does, is that it first goes out of the Earth's atmosphere, goes on a ballistic trajectory, which is essentially a projectile motion, a parabolic path, and then it re-enters the atmosphere, and then it comes towards the destination, whatever the target is. So that's what a ballistic missile is like. So when it re-enters the atmosphere, that's when you can intercept it, when you know where it's heading towards. It depends on what sort of range your missile defense system has, what is the readiness, and so on and so forth. But let's say you take one of these incoming missiles out, you destroy it. Now, this incoming missile is a nuclear missile, let's say. It has a nuclear warhead. So when you destroy the incoming nuclear missile, will there be a nuclear explosion? No. Most likely there won't be a nuclear explosion. There is something called a fuse on a nuclear warhead, and it typically detonates, and the nuclear warhead on a missile, incoming ballistic missile, typically detonates at a certain altitude or on impact. And there are certain characteristics of the impact that would trigger a detonation. Most probably it would be something that is a proximity kind of thing, maybe 100 meters above, when the altitude is 100 meters, or maybe half a kilometer, or whatever you programmed into it. So that's what it takes for a nuclear explosion to happen and for the warhead's nuclear device to be triggered. Most likely, when you take out a nuclear missile which is incoming in mid-air, we would typically do it at an altitude of 50 kilometers or 20 kilometers, if you're, or something like that. So in that case, most likely there will not be a nuclear explosion. It will just be destroyed and the warhead will fall somewhere, or maybe it will break open, and the materials inside may spill out into the atmosphere. So that is the most likely scenario. Maybe there even may be a nuclear blast in case it is programmed that way, in which case the nuclear explosion will take several kilometers up in the air, and it will not have a significant impact on the target site. Let's say you have a nuclear blast 10 kilometers in the air or 20 kilometers high up in the air. There will be almost no fallout on the ground. There will be a cloud of radioactive debris and all that. It will dissipate across the atmosphere, and it will lead to, well, the kind of situation you had when the Tsar Bomba was detonated. So the Russians, they detonated this enormous nuclear bomb, the Tsar Bomba. I think it was in the 50s or 60s, most likely somewhere around that time. And this 50 megaton nuclear warhead was detonated maybe a few kilometers in the air. I'm not sure what height it was at, but maybe let's say hypothetically 10 kilometers or 5 kilometers, whatever it was. So it exploded in mid-air, and then it created a massive mushroom cloud. But the radioactive fallout was very less on the ground. It was negligible. Of course, there was radioactive fallout in the atmosphere, but that's a different story. So if a nuclear warhead explodes in midair a few kilometers above the ground, it will not have much of an effect on the target site. That's what happens. So now, about the Sarmat ICBM, that's a super heavy ICBM. It's a double. It has at least two stages. The first stage, I believe, is a solid fueled stage, and the second stage, or whatever it is, or third stage, whatever it is a liquid fueled stage. And it has a very, very long range. It can essentially hit any target in the world. Uh, so that's what it is. Now, can a defense system such as the S-400 or the Patriot system intercept it? The thing about the Sarmat is that it is an enormous missile. It's a super heavy missile. It has a very long range, and it is a MIRV missile, multiple independent re-entry vehicles, which means that a single missile would carry maybe 10 or 12 thermonuclear warheads, and each of these warheads will be programmed to hit a different destination, a different target. So the missile goes up into the atmosphere. It goes out of the atmosphere, goes into space, outer space. Then it re-enters the atmosphere, and while re-entering, it's it releases the 10, 12, 15, whatever warheads it is carrying, and each of these warheads goes to a different destination. And sometimes you may even have a maneuvering uh, gliding warhead that would go to a destination, but it would go through a zigzag path, so it's very hard to intercept, right? So that is the advantage of having MIRV technology, multiple independent re-entry vehicles, or I think that's what the acronym stands for. So when you have that sort of a thing, it's really hard to intercept that. You will essentially have to either destroy the incoming missile very high in the atmosphere before it releases its warheads, or you would have to go after each warhead independently. Let's say it releases 15 warheads or 12 warheads, each of which is a thermonuclear weapon, and each of these guys goes in different directions. It may be each of these guys may be maneuvering in a certain way. It makes it really, really hard to intercept, really hard. Now the S-400 system may possibly be able to take out uh, these MIRV warheads. Possibly, I think it's able to target multiple incoming bogies at the same time. So it is certainly possible that the S-400 may be able to take it out. There's a newer, more advanced version of this system called the S-500. There's even talk about a S-550. So these are progressively better iterations of the system. The previous one was called the S-300. So there's always a likelihood that even the best system may miss some of the incoming missiles or warheads, because none of these systems is guaranteed to be 100% accurate. It has a small error margin. And the S-400 is, as of today, most likely the best available system. The Patriot system is not quite as good, neither is the Israeli Iron Dome system. So I think if you are a betting person, if you would like to bet, then your bets should be on the S-400 system, because I think the S-400 system has the best possible chance of stopping an incoming nuclear attack. Even if it is an MIRV system, I believe it's able to deal with MIRV warheads as well. So if you want to bet, you should bet on the S-400.